Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Think of an American autumn harvest, and you might picture a sea of floating crimson berries. The cranberry bog is an iconic image, a symbol of agricultural ingenuity. But across North America, a quiet transformation is happening. These manufactured landscapes are undergoing a metamorphosis, returning to the wild, functioning wetlands they once were. This isn't just about letting a farm go fallow. It's a story of ecological healing, driven by economics, climate change, and a deeper understanding of nature. Today, we're exploring the journey from cultivated bog to wild wetland. Long before European settlers arrived, the cranberry was a vital part of North America's natural tapestry. Indigenous peoples, like the Wampanoag, harvested the wild fruit, which they called sasumuniish, for at least 12,000 years. It was more than food. They mashed it with cornmeal, sweetened it with maple sugar, and ingeniously used it in pemmican, a high-energy survival food of dried meat, fat, and cranberries. The berry's natural benzoic acid acted as a preservative, making pemmican perfect for long journeys. Cranberries were also used as medicine, and their juice as a rich red dye. The arrival of European settlers in the 17th century changed the cranberry's story. They learned about the fruit from the Wampanoag, and the name cranberry likely came from German and Dutch settlers who saw a resemblance between the flower and a crane's head and neck. For nearly 2 centuries, harvesting was limited to wild patches. That all changed in 1816 with Captain Henry Hall, a Revolutionary War veteran in Massachusetts. He noticed that wild vines grew better when sand from nearby dunes blew over them. He started experimenting, spreading sand on his vines, and his crop productivity soared. This technique, sanding, became a cornerstone of cranberry farming that continues to this day. Hall's innovations sparked an industry. Farmers began engineering the landscape on a massive scale. They would clear a wetland, scalp the topsoil, level it, and build dikes to create distinct beds. They constructed intricate networks of ditches and dams to control water, allowing them to flood the bogs for harvesting and winter protection. This created the highly modified artificial landscape we know today, a landscape fundamentally different from the natural wetland it replaced. The industry boomed, becoming a major economic engine, especially in southeastern Massachusetts, where children were often excused from school to help with the harvest. But this picturesque industry has a hidden ecological footprint. The very process of creating and maintaining a cranberry bog disrupts the natural world. It's all about control. A natural wetland has fluctuating water, diverse plants, and spongy soil. A cranberry bog is a simplified, regulated system designed to grow one single plant. This artificial hydrology has huge consequences. Streams that once meandered are straightened or dammed, cutting off ecosystems. The industry's thirst for water is immense. A single acre can require 7 to 10 feet of water over a year for production, harvesting, and frost protection. This demand strains local rivers, ponds, and groundwater. One of the biggest problems is pollution. Because it's a monoculture, the cranberry crop is vulnerable to pests. Conventional growers use a range of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides. They also apply phosphorus and nitrogen fertilizers to boost growth in the nutrient-poor soil. These chemicals don't stay put. They are often applied through the irrigation system, a process called chemigation. When the bogs are flooded or drained, these chemicals wash into nearby waterways. Studies have found pesticide levels downstream high enough to kill test organisms. The fertilizer runoff is especially damaging. It causes eutrophication, where excess nutrients trigger massive algal blooms in ponds and estuaries. These blooms block sunlight, and when they die and decompose, they suck oxygen out of the water, creating dead zones where fish can't survive. In the Wareham River in Massachusetts, cranberry farming is responsible for about 20% of the nitrogen pollution. Beyond chemicals, the physical structure of the bog is also a problem. The repeated layering of sand buries the original, carbon-rich peat soil, sometimes creating a compacted layer several feet deep. This separates the surface from the water table, drying out the historic wetland and destroying habitat for countless species, from microbes to amphibians and fish. So why are a growing number of farmers choosing to walk away from this legacy and turn their bogs back into wetlands? The decision is driven by a powerful mix of economics, climate, and new opportunities. The economics of cranberry farming have become brutal, especially for smaller, older bogs in the east. Wisconsin, with its larger, more efficient operations, now dominates the market. This, along with competition from Quebec and Chile, has created a global oversupply, causing prices to plummet. Many bogs are over a century old, and their infrastructure, dikes, dams, and irrigation systems requires constant, expensive repairs. Renovating a bog with new, higher-yielding cranberry varieties is a massive investment that many farmers, especially those nearing retirement, simply can't justify. Climate change is the next major pressure. Cranberry farming depends on predictable weather, which is now a thing of the past. Warmer winters disrupt the plant's dormant period. Erratic spring weather damages budding vines. More frequent droughts strain water supplies, while extreme floods can overwhelm control systems and wipe out a crop. Faced with these challenges, many landowners are at a crossroads. If a bog is simply abandoned, it doesn't heal on its own. The compacted sand and altered hydrology prevent natural rewetting, and the land often becomes overrun with invasive plants. This is where a coalition of state, federal, and nonprofit groups have stepped in. Programs like the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration's Cranberry Bog Program and the USDA's Wetland Reserve Program offer farmers a viable alternative. They provide funding to cover restoration costs and purchase conservation easements, which permanently protect the land from development while allowing the family to keep ownership. This offers farmers a financial exit strategy, ensuring their land becomes a protected open space instead of a housing development. It's a chance to transform a financial burden into an ecological legacy. So, how exactly do you turn a farm back into a wetland? It's a science-driven process of deconstruction and ecological engineering. It's more than just walking away. It's about actively assisting the ecosystem's recovery. First comes the assessment. Restoration teams use ground-penetrating radar to map the depth of the sand and locate the original buried peat soil, the ghost of the old wetland. Hydrologists study the water flow to figure out how to undo the man-made plumbing. Next is the design and engineering phase, where a detailed blueprint for deconstruction is created. This is followed by the most dramatic phase, reshaping the land. The first step is to liberate the water. Dams, culverts, and other barriers are removed to reconnect the stream. Then, they deal with the sand. Since hauling away tons of sand is incredibly expensive, most projects get creative. They use sand from the bog's surface to fill the vast network of drainage ditches. This eliminates the artificial drainage and lowers the land's elevation, bringing it closer to the water table. With the dams gone and ditches filled, crews carve a new, winding stream channel through the former bog beds, mimicking nature's path. They add large pieces of wood to the stream to slow water flow and create pools, providing crucial habitat for fish. Finally, the surface is roughened up to create a varied topography of small humps and hollows. Once the physical work is done and water flows naturally again, something amazing happens. The area, which might initially look like a muddy mess, begins to turn green. This rebirth comes from the seed bank, ancient seeds of native wetland plants that have been lying dormant under the sand for a century. Reactivated by water and sunlight, they spring to life. In restored sites, the number of plant species can jump to an average of 35 per square meter, compared to just 6 in abandoned bogs. The land remembers what it was supposed to be. The final step is long-term monitoring, tracking the return of wildlife and the improvements in water quality. providing lessons for future projects. This transformation from monoculture to a mosaic of life unleashes a cascade of benefits. The most immediate is an explosion of biodiversity. The diverse native plants that emerge from the seed bank form the base of a new food web, attracting insects, birds, amphibians, and reptiles. The restored, meandering streams become perfect habitat for fish. In Massachusetts, projects have seen the return of migratory river herring and American eel, which can finally access their historic spawning grounds after dams were removed. This, in turn, brings back predators like herons and river otters. Restored wetlands are also incredible water filters. The slow-moving water and dense vegetation absorb excess nitrogen and phosphorus, the very pollutants that came from the farm. By turning a source of pollution into a sink for pollutants, these projects protect downstream coastal ecosystems from harmful algal blooms. In our changing climate, wetlands are a critical ally. They act like natural sponges, soaking up floodwater from intense storms and releasing it slowly, protecting downstream communities. They are also carbon-storing superstars. The waterlogged peat soils are incredibly efficient at locking away carbon from the atmosphere. By re-wetting these historic peatlands, restoration projects reactivate the land's ability to fight climate change. This isn't just theory. A series of ambitious projects in southeastern Massachusetts have proven the concept. The Eel River Headwaters restoration, completed in 2010, was the pioneer. This project transformed 60 acres of retired bogs by removing a large dam and 7 smaller ones. Crews reconstructed nearly 2 miles of meandering stream and planted over 17,000 Atlantic white cedar trees. Today, those cedars are thriving, and river herring have been seen swimming upstream for the first time in a century. Then there's the Tidmarsh Wildlife Sanctuary, the largest freshwater restoration in the Northeast. The former owners chose to rewild their nearly 500-acre Cranberry farm. 9 dams were removed, and the compacted land was reshaped to expose the underlying peat. The ecological response was immediate, with a host of species returning to the land. The property is now a